Welcome to the Economy Magazine. I'm Benjamin Chong Alfares with the news from the global economy. Coming up, Lebanon seeks billions in bonds to boost its economy, and melting glaciers in Pakistan threaten food supplies. First, the headlines. Japanese retail sales rose the most in 4 months, a sign the economy is shaking off a blow from a sales tax increase in April. Sales climbed 2.7% in September from August, when they rose 1.9%, the Trade Ministry said on Tuesday. For the third quarter, sales were up 1.4% from a year earlier, following a 1.8% drop in the second quarter. The stronger sales could encourage Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to decide in favor of an additional tax hike next year. Asian shares marked gains while the dollar held steady on Tuesday as investors awaited the outcome of the U.S. Federal Reserve's two-day meeting. MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan rebounded from early losses to close at 0.8%. The Fed is expected to reinforce its willingness to wait a long while before hiking interest rates after a turbulent month in financial markets. European shares were also higher on Tuesday, with the French CAC 40 at 0.6%, the German DAX at 1.6%, and the FTSE 100 at 0.7% in afternoon trade. Egypt said it could tap international bond markets and is open to agreeing on an International Monetary Fund loan package to shore up its finances. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's government has started implementing politically sensitive economic reforms and could raise up to $1.5 billion next year. Al-Sisi has slashed energy subsidies and raised taxes in a bid to narrow the budget deficit and gain the confidence of foreign investors.
Next year, there will be very little decline and the rigidity because I have a constitutional obligation to increase spending on health sector and education services and almost double them, so bring them up to 10% of GDP by year 16-17.
Finance Minister Hani Kadri promised more austerity ahead as the Egyptian economy is still lagging behind the curve. Billions of dollars from Gulf Arab allies who backed Sisi's ouster of the Muslim Brotherhood last year have kept the economy afloat, giving the former army chief room to maneuver.
We're open to all different sources of financing with the magnitude that we choose and with the assessment to the timing, to the appropriate timing that we can get into the markets or to have an access with the IMF. So all alternatives are open.
Moody's raised Egypt's credit ratings outlook to stable from negative last week, citing a more steady political and security situation and as economic indicators improved. Lithuania's first floating liquefied natural gas terminal on Monday became the first to sever Moscow's energy grip on the Baltic states. The terminal gives Lithuania the capability to import up to 4 billion cubic meters of gas per year, enough for neighboring Latvia and Estonia as well. Lithuania will use the terminal to import 0.54 billion cubic meters of gas from Norway's Statoil next year, about 1/5 of annual demand. Despite joining the EU and NATO in 2004, Lithuania had been completely dependent on Russia for natural gas. To connect to other EU gas markets, Lithuania also plans to build a gas pipeline to neighboring Poland by 2019. As the Israeli Knesset kicks off its winter session, its first order of business will be passing the 2015 budget. The budget has already been subject to many battles, namely over the proposal to eliminate the value-added tax on new home purchases for young couples. Unlike many real estate markets around the world, Israeli housing has continued to rise, making it prohibitively expensive for the middle class to buy a home. And while there are already signs the government may not deliver its budget bill when it's due on Wednesday, failure to pass the budget would cause the government to fall. Lebanon aims to raise funding for its pressured economy by issuing billions of dollars worth of Eurobonds over the next 3 years. And though the economy shows signs of recovery, the 3-year Syrian civil war continues to weigh on growth. Daniel Roth brings us the details.
Lebanon is aiming to issue a $450 million Euro bond by the end of the year to support its budgetary needs. As well, the plan may include a further $4.4 billion over the next 3 years. Lebanon's economy is not on solid ground. The Institute of International Finance, IIF, projects GDP growth of only 1.5% in 2014. In 2012, it was 1.6% and 0.9% in 2013. This is a direct consequence of regional uncertainty over the border in Syria and beyond.
There is a huge pressure on the economy from the refugees in the country and on job opportunities. So far, the response of the international community and the international organizations has been limited and is not at a level which can consider a serious contribution to covering the costs.
However, the strength of the Lebanese banking system and recently discovered gas deposits, if combined with political stabilization in the region, could help in the rebuilding of the Lebanese economy in the not-too-distant future. This is true even as public debt is expected to reach 146% of GDP for the current year, against 142% in 2013 and 147% in 2015.
Today, the central bank has foreign liquidity that exceeds $38 billion, which is historically the highest, and disregarding the value of gold. So we have a strong position in foreign currency.
But regional instability is a reality, and it hampers foreign private investment and local tourism. On October 25th, the army and militants again clashed in northern Lebanon. According to the IIF, the Syrian crisis led to a shortfall of $17.1 billion for Lebanon, nearly 9% of GDP over the period 2011 to 2014.
Joining us now is I-24 News correspondent Ayman Sikseck for further discussion on Lebanon in Financial Bazaar. Ayman, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So what are some of the issues remaining that the Lebanese government has to deal with in trying to raise more dollars for the economy?
Well, it's interesting that you say trying to raise more dollars. Lots of financial news in Lebanon this week. The biggest one, absolutely, is that the World Bank has decided to finance the development of a water supply depository in Lebanon for $474 million. That's
Wow.
the biggest ever finance project for the World Bank in Lebanon. And this will be supplemented by another $128 million from the Islamic Development Bank. Now, this is a problem Lebanon has been dealing with for years, especially because of the turmoil with neighboring Syria and everything that's going on there.
Right.
There have been severe water shortages in the country. This new development will affect mainly over 1 million people living in the greater Beirut area. So the country is really excited for this new project. They're very much in need for it. It will take, however, 9 years till this is completed. So big news, but we'll have to wait a while till we see it.
But this water situation, this is something that predates the problems with Syria.
Yes,
right?
absolutely. But you see, the problems with Syria are continuously affecting Lebanon. What's going on now is that the Lebanese finance minister, who we just saw in the previous correspondence that we just saw, he also said that Lebanon will only see 2% increase in its income next year, which is far less than they had predicted and expected. So the country is in a lot of trouble, and this is, of course, because of the fallout from what's going on in neighboring Syria.
Now, let's talk about neighboring Syria, because, I mean, there's about 1.7 million refugees, I think, from Syria. What is the effect they have on the economy in Lebanon?
Well, obviously, supporting these Syrian refugees is straining the Lebanese economy. Now, there are, of course, many political issues that come with this, but mainly financially, it's been a heavy strain on the Lebanese government, even though they support ideologically the Syrian refugees and they want to help them as much as they can. It has been extremely difficult and challenging for them to do so financially.
If I'm not mistaken, they've taken on the bulk, the majority of the refugees between Jordan and Lebanon. I mean, that's where the bulk of the refugees have gone.
Absolutely. And just in time after the finance minister said that Lebanon will need $2.5 billion in assistance in order to come out of this financial rut that they've been in, the governor of the central bank also said that there's a planned stimulus package of $1 billion for Lebanon next year, so less than half than they expected and had hoped for, but it still is likely to make a huge difference.
It sounds like they're somewhat on the right track here. Do they have any other austerity measures planned to impose a better framework for the economy?
Well, certainly the governor of the central bank would agree with you that they're on the right track. He also said that they have foreign reserves at the height of 38 billion, which is a historical high for them, and gold reserves at 13 billion for 2015. So there is a right track forming here, especially now with the World Bank announcing that they will finance this water supply project. So we'll sit tight and hope to see what's going on in Lebanon next year.
I-24 News correspondent Ayman Siksak, Financial Bazaar, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And Lebanon is not the only country facing water issues. We move on now to northern Pakistan, where melting glaciers are raising concern that water reserves are under threat like never before. And scientists warn that the country's future food security is at stake. More in this report.
The Karakoram Highway in northern Pakistan, one of the highest roads in the world, but here underwater for the next 10 kilometers. 4 years ago, the gradual melting of a glacier caused a massive landslide that blocked the Hunza River, creating this lake. Sada Ahmed used to be a laborer. Today, he's a boatman, helping ferry people and goods towards neighboring China.
4 years back, this mountain collapsed and fell into the river, blocking it. The first year was very tough. There was no means of transport, and this area was cut off. The river blockade led to the formation of this lake, which submerged everything. Even today, the houses, land, gardens, and other buildings are submerged in the water.
In all, 5 villages lie beneath the surface of the lake. And to do business with China, boats are the only option. The future, according to scientists, is for more glaciers to melt. They're predicting an increase in global temperature of between 2 and 5 degrees centigrade over the next 100 years, spelling trouble for this region.
In countries like Pakistan, 70 to 90% of agriculture depends on the glacial melt. And for now, we'll have more water available for agriculture in coming years. But in next 3 to 4 decades, this reduction will be permanent and the flow to our rivers will decrease, resulting in a tremendous challenge of food security because water will not be available.
The Himalayas are a vital source of water not just for Pakistan, but for the whole of the Indian subcontinent. Despite the apparent abundance of water, some farmers are already struggling. 10 years ago, Tawaka Khan's fields yielded harvests of potatoes and green peas. Today, there's nothing but dust.
In the old days, this glacier used to be very high, and there was lots of water. The ice used to break and roll down into our fields. We were easily getting water for our land. But things have changed now. The glacier has enormously decreased in height, and it has become very difficult to get water for irrigation. Because the glacier has decreased in thickness, it's almost impossible for the water to travel upwards and across through a normal stream.
Boasting 5 of the world's 14 mountains over 8,000 meters high, Pakistan has one of the largest reservoirs of fresh water on the planet. But with water shortages set to increase and some 200 million people dependent on agriculture, many here fear for the future.
Now for a discussion of other reports we called for you from around the world in Media Watch. Daniel Roth.
How's it going?
Good. So I understand Israel is not the only one looking to electronic payments. You have something regarding mobile payments, yeah?
Yeah, so there's these things called Google Wallet, Apple Pay. They're essentially apps that you put on your mobile device, and you can pay without ever touching cash, without writing checks. So obviously, it's the 21st century. But these are apps that you sort of swipe along at the register at a store, and you've paid. It's gone to your credit card or your bank account. Now, these were starting to get a lot of hype from Google and from Apple, which were the sort of the big names in this. But now, specifically in the U.S., major retailers, CVS, Rite Aid, and other sort of pharmacy/retail stores are actually starting to shut out Apple Pay and Google Wallet specifically because they're inventing their own mobile wallets, essentially. So they're actually, what this is indicative of is that it's a wide open field. No one has control of this field, this mobile wallet field. Not Google, not Apple, not CVS, not the retailers. Everyone's kind of in it to see if they can become the umbrella wallet, the wallet that everyone needs to go through. Essentially, the Google of Google Wallet.
Okay, I guess time will tell who's the winner there in that respect. Thanks, Daniel Roth, for joining us in Media Watch. That is the end of The Economy Magazine, your daily source for economic and financial reports at I-24 News. I'm Benjamin Chong. Join us again tomorrow.